Part 1. The City That Refused to Die. For 1,000 years, one city refused to fall. Armies came. Kings attacked. Empires rose. Empires disappeared. But Constantinople stayed alive. People believed one thing about this city: it could not be conquered. It stood between Europe and Asia. It stood between the old world and the new world. It was rich, powerful, and famous. Its churches shined. Its markets were full. Its streets carried gold, silk, spices, and stories from faraway lands. To many people, Constantinople was not just a city, it was history itself. And that is what made it so dangerous. Because when something looks eternal, people stop asking if it can fall. They start believing it never will. But in 1453, that belief was about to be tested. A young ruler was coming. He was only 21 years old. Many people looked at him and thought the same thing. Too young, too inexperienced, too ambitious, just another dreamer. But they were wrong. His name was Mehmed, and he wanted the one prize that had defeated great armies for centuries. He wanted Constantinople, not a small victory, not a weak enemy, not a border war. He wanted the city that others called impossible. He wanted the city that refused to die. By this time, Constantinople still looked proud. Its walls still stood high. Its churches still held their beauty. Its name still carried power. But names can be stronger than reality. Long ago, the Byzantine Empire had ruled a huge world. It had controlled lands, seas, trade, and wealth. It had once been one of the greatest empires on earth. But that world was gone. Now the empire was small, very small. It had lost land. It had lost money. It had lost soldiers. It had lost time. What remained was the city and the memory of greatness. Sometimes memory gives people courage. Sometimes memory gives people hope. And sometimes memory makes people believe yesterday can protect them today. That was the danger inside Constantinople. The people still trusted the walls, and for a long time they had good reason. Those walls were legendary. For centuries they had protected the city from attack after attack. Powerful enemies came. Large armies came. Fierce warriors came. But the walls remained. Again and again, they held. Again and again, they survived. That is why many people inside the city still believed one simple thing: the walls will save us. But outside the city, the world was changing. War was changing. Weapons were changing. Power was changing. And all around Constantinople, a new empire was growing stronger every year. The Ottoman Empire. Step by step, it was expanding. Year by year, it was closing in, and Constantinople was becoming weaker. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI understood the truth. He knew the danger was real. He knew the empire was weak. He knew help from the West might never come. He knew the city was standing almost alone. But he also knew something even more important. If Constantinople fell, it would not only be the loss of a city, it would be the end of an empire. It would be the end of a 1,000-year story. So the city prepared. Soldiers watched the walls. Workers repaired weak places. Leaders searched for allies. Citizens prayed in churches. Bells rang across the rooftops. Life continued, but fear was growing. Day by day, the fear grew, because everyone knew the same thing. Mehmed was coming, and he was not like the enemies of the past. He was young, but he was serious. He was ambitious, but he was careful. He studied the city. He studied the walls. He studied the failures of the past. He did not want to repeat old mistakes. He wanted a new way to win. And soon the people of Constantinople would hear something they had never heard before, a sound that could shake stone, a sound that could shake faith, a sound that could shake history. The final siege was coming. And this time, the city that refused to die would face the one enemy ready to change the rules forever. If you enjoy learning English through powerful history stories, subscribe now, because in the next part, we will see how a 21-year-old sultan prepared for the impossible and built a weapon that could break the strongest walls in the world. Part 2. The young sultan and the weapon of the future. Mehmed was only 21 years old, but he did not think like a young ruler. He thought like a man with one clear mission: take Constantinople. For many years, Ottoman rulers had wanted the city. It stood in the middle of their world like a locked gate. It controlled important trade routes. It connected Europe and Asia. It was rich, famous, and powerful. As long as Constantinople stood free, the old empire was not truly gone. Mehmed wanted to end that. Many people underestimated him. They saw his age and thought he would be weak. They thought he would make mistakes. They thought he would fail like others before him. But Mehmed was patient, and Mehmed was serious. He knew one thing very well: bravery was not enough. Many armies had already attacked Constantinople with brave soldiers. Many armies had already failed. If he wanted to win, he needed something new. So first he prepared. Step by step, he made his empire stronger. He gathered men, money, and supplies. He secured power inside his own lands. He did not rush. Then he made a bold move. Near Constantinople, on the Bosporus, he built a huge fortress, Rumeli Hisari. Its purpose was simple: control the water, block support, trap the city. The people of Constantinople could see it rising, stone by stone, tower by tower. It was a warning, and then came the real danger. The walls of Constantinople were famous. For centuries, they had stopped powerful enemies. To break them, Mehmed needed more than soldiers. He needed a weapon strong enough to challenge history. So he turned to gunpowder. A skilled engineer named Orban promised he could build giant cannons. The Byzantines did not have enough money to support such a project, but Mehmed did, and he said yes. Soon, huge bronze cannons were being made. These were not normal weapons. They were monsters. Some were so large that many oxen and hundreds of men were needed just to move them. But Mehmed accepted the difficulty because he understood something important. He was not just building a cannon, he was building a new kind of war. When the great cannon was ready, everything changed. It was slow, it was heavy, it was hard to move, but it could fire massive stone balls at the walls of Constantinople. One shot could shake the ground. One shot could crack stone. One shot could break confidence. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI watched the danger grow. He repaired the walls. He gathered soldiers. He searched for help. He prepared for the storm. But time was running out, and the city was running out of choices. By the spring of 1453, the trap was almost closed. The fortress was ready. The army was gathering. The giant guns were prepared. And soon Constantinople would hear a terrible sound. A sound like thunder. A sound like the future. A sound that would make even the strongest walls tremble. Part 3. The walls began to shake. In April 1453, the waiting was over. The Ottoman army arrived, and suddenly the danger was no longer a fear. It was real. It was here. From the walls of Constantinople, The people looked out and saw a sea of soldiers. Tents covered the land. Flags moved in the wind. Weapons flashed in the light. The city was surrounded. For the people inside, this was terrifying. They had known the attack was coming. But knowing is one thing. Seeing it is another. Now they could see it. Now they could feel it. And soon they would hear it. Mehmed placed his army carefully around the city. He was calm. He was focused. He had waited for this moment. Then the giant cannons were moved into position. And then everything changed. The guns opened fire. The sound was like thunder. The ground shook. The air trembled. And a massive stone ball crashed into the walls of Constantinople. For centuries, those walls had protected the city. Now, for the first time, they faced something different, something stronger. At first, the defenders rushed to repair the damage. They carried stones. They moved earth. They worked day and night. But the attacks did not stop. Again and again, the cannons fired. Again and again, the walls shook. Day by day, the pressure grew. Inside the city, fear was spreading. This was not like the old wars. This was not like the old sieges. This was something new. And for the first time, many people began to understand the truth. The walls might not save them this time. Part 4. The ships that crossed the land. At first, Constantinople still had one great advantage: the Golden Horn. This long waterway protected one side of the city, and across its entrance, the defenders had placed a huge iron chain. It stretched across the water like a locked gate. The message was clear. No enemy ships would enter. This mattered a lot. If the Ottoman navy could not get into the Golden Horn, the city still had a chance. The walls on that side were weaker, but as long as the chain held, those walls were safer. For a moment it looked like the defenders had found hope, but Mehmed was not finished. When he saw that his ships could not break through, he did not stop. He changed the game. Instead of forcing his ships through the water, he moved them over land. It sounded impossible, but that is exactly what he did. His men built a path of wood and grease over the hills near the city. Then, step by step, ship by ship, they pulled Ottoman vessels across the land and into the Golden Horn. When the people of Constantinople saw this, they could hardly believe it. Enemy ships were now behind the chain, behind the defense, behind the plan. Everything had changed. The city was no longer protected on one side. Now danger was in front of them and behind them. Fear spread fast. The defenders were already tired. They were already repairing walls. They were already fighting day and night. And now they had a new threat inside the harbor. Mehmed had done more than move ships. He had broken confidence. He had shown the city one terrible truth. There was no safe side anymore. The trap was closing, and the final attack was getting closer. Part 5. The last night before the end. By now, Constantinople was exhausted. Day after day, the cannons fired. Day after day, the defenders repaired the walls. Day after day, the pressure grew. The city was still standing, but it was getting weaker. The walls were damaged in many places. Some parts were cracked. Some parts were broken and rebuilt again and again. Every night, men rushed to repair what the cannons destroyed during the day. It was a battle of time, and time was running out. Inside the city, people were tired. Soldiers had little rest. Food was limited. Fear was everywhere. The sound of war never seemed to stop. And still, they kept fighting, because everyone understood the truth. If the walls failed, everything failed. Emperor Constantine the 11th did not run. He did not hide. He stayed with his people. He moved where he was needed. He encouraged the defenders. He prepared for the final attack. He knew what was coming, and so did Mehmed. The young sultan could feel the city weakening. His army had pushed hard. His cannons had done their work. His ships had changed the battle. The defenders were still resisting, but they were tired, very tired. Now he prepared for the final strike. The next attack would not be small. It would not be another test. It would be everything. Inside Constantinople, something powerful happened that night. People gathered in churches. They prayed together. They cried. They hoped. Some prayed for a miracle. Some already feared the end. It was the last night of an empire, and maybe deep inside many people knew it. The city that had survived for centuries was now standing on the edge. One more attack, one more break in the wall, one more mistake. That was all it would take. Morning was coming, and with it, the final assault. Part 6. The day the empire ended. Before sunrise, the final attack began. The Ottoman army moved forward in waves. Drums beat in the dark. Shouts filled the air. The cannons had already done their work. Now the walls were weak. Now the city was tired. This was the moment Mehmed had been waiting for. The defenders fought with everything they had left. They were exhausted, but they did not stop. They knew this was the end. If they failed now, Constantinople would be lost forever. And then it happened. A breach opened. The walls could not hold. The Ottoman forces pushed through. The battle inside the city began. Emperor Constantine the 11th did not flee. He stayed and fought. He chose to stand with his city until the very end. And somewhere in the chaos of the final battle, the last Byzantine emperor disappeared into history. The city that had stood for 1,000 years had finally fallen. Constantinople was no longer the capital of the Byzantine Empire. A great empire was over. A new age had begun. For Mehmed, it was the victory of a lifetime. He had done what so many before him could not do. He had taken the city that once seemed impossible to conquer. For the world, it was more than a military victory. It was a turning point. The fall of Constantinople changed trade, power, and history itself. Many people still see it as the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of a new world. And that is what makes this story so powerful. Even the strongest walls can fall. Even the greatest empires can end. And sometimes, history changes in a single morning. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more powerful history in simple English. And if you want to keep learning English through unforgettable stories, watch more videos right here on Spin a Yarn English. Because the next great empire, mystery, or turning point in history might change the way you see the world.
Thanks! Please subscribe and like. Spin a new yarn with us every week. See you there!